The comment came during dessert, right after Mom brought out her famous apple pie. My brother Marcus leaned back in his chair, wine glass in hand, surveying the table like he owned it. Which in a way he did. This was his house, his dinner party, his moment to shine in front of the extended family. "So David," Marcus said, looking at my 17-year-old son, "what are your plans after high school? Got any big dreams?" My son hesitated, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. "I'm thinking about community college first, then maybe transferring. I want to study business management." The table went quiet. Then Marcus laughed, that booming laugh he'd perfected over years of closing deals and dominating boardrooms. "Community college," he repeated, shaking his head. "Let me give you some real talk, kid. With your grades and your background, you're looking at cleaning jobs, janitorial work, maybe landscaping if you're lucky. That's just reality. No shame in it. But let's not pretend you're heading for some big corporate career." My sister Jennifer snorted into her napkin, trying to hide her laugh but failing. "Marcus, you're terrible," she said, smiling. "I'm just being realistic," Marcus continued. "These kids today all think they're going to be CEOs. But somebody has to do the actual work, right? The manual labor. That's where most people end up." My cousin Jake nodded along. "He's got a point." Dad looked down at his plate, uncomfortable but silent. Mom suddenly became very interested in cutting her pie into smaller pieces. Marcus's wife nodded sympathetically, patting my hand like I was the one who needed consoling. "Marcus, that's not," I started. "What?" "I'm being honest," he interrupted. "The kid needs to hear the truth. Not everyone gets to be successful. Some people are meant for service jobs. Nothing wrong with that. Someone's got to clean the toilets, right?" My cousins laughed. Uncle Tom raised his glass in agreement. Aunt Sandra whispered something to her husband and they both smirked. David's hands trembled slightly as he set down his fork. His face had gone pale, but he was trying hard not to show how much the words had hurt. I recognized that look. I'd worn it myself plenty of times at family gatherings over the years. "Actually," I said calmly, "David's doing quite well in his business classes. His teachers say he has a real aptitude for financial analysis." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "Teachers say that to everyone. Look, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to help the kids set realistic expectations. You know how tough the real world is. Without connections, without the right education, without money. Let's be real here. Your business seems to be doing well," I observed, keeping my voice neutral. "Damn right it is," Marcus said, puffing up with pride. "Just landed the Morrison contract. $3 million over 2 years. We're expanding to 3 new locations next quarter. I've got 12 employees now, a fleet of company vehicles and new office space downtown. Corner unit, 20th floor, windows overlooking the harbor." Everyone congratulated him in a chorus of admiration. Dad clapped him on the shoulder. Mom beamed with genuine pride. My other siblings chimed in, asking about the expansion and the new office. Jennifer wanted to know if he was hiring. Uncle Tom asked about investment opportunities. Marcus soaked it all in, holding court like business royalty. "That's impressive," I said. "When do you plan to file the quarterly reports?" "What?" Marcus looked confused. "The quarterly financial reports. They're due next week, aren't they? For the Morrison contract, you'll need detailed expense tracking, profit margins, tax documentation. Pretty complex stuff." Marcus's smile faltered slightly. "Yeah, well, my accountant handles all that." "Right," I said, taking a sip of water. "Your accountant. Can we please just enjoy dinner?" Dad interjected, clearly uncomfortable. "Let's keep the peace here." But I stood up slowly, folding my napkin and placing it beside my plate. "You know what's interesting, Marcus? You're absolutely right that connections matter in business. And education matters. And having the right people in your corner who understand complex financial systems." "Where are you going with this?" Marcus asked, his voice taking on an edge. "David," I said, turning to my son, "why don't you go wait in the car? I'll be out in a few minutes." He didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his jacket and left quickly, grateful for the escape. I heard the front door close behind him. "Look, if I offended you," Marcus started. "You didn't offend me," I said. "You offended my son. But that's not really the issue here. The issue is that you seem to have forgotten some important details about how your business actually operates." The room had gone completely silent now. Everyone was watching us. "What are you talking about?" Marcus demanded. "I'm talking about the fact that I've been doing your books for the past 6 years. Every single financial report, every tax filing, every expense account, every payroll calculation, every quarterly statement, every annual audit preparation. All of it. Me. I've categorized every business expense, tracked every client payment, reconciled every bank statement, calculated every employee's paycheck and tax withholding. When you got that business loan 2 years ago, who prepared the financial statements? When the IRS audited you last year, who assembled all the documentation that kept you out of trouble? When you bid on the Morrison contract, who analyzed the costs and profit margins to make sure your proposal made sense?" Marcus's face went red, a deep crimson that started at his collar and spread upward. "So, I pay you for that. You're my accountant. That's your job. Do you?" I asked, pulling out my phone and opening my accounting app, "because according to my records, you haven't paid my invoices in 8 months. You owe me $42,000. That's not including the rush jobs you've asked me to do, the weekend emergency calls, or the times I've had to drop everything to fix your mistakes. The last payment I received from you was in March. It's November now." Mom gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth. Dad's fork clattered onto his plate with a sharp metallic sound that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Uncle Tom's eyebrows shot up. Jennifer's mouth fell open. "That's not, I mean, we have an arrangement," Marcus stammered, his confident tone evaporating like morning mist. "You know how it is with family. We help each other out. We had an arrangement where you paid me on time. But then you started asking for family discounts. Then you said you'd pay me after the Morrison deal closed. Then it was after the expansion. There's always another reason why you can't pay, but somehow you found money for this house renovation, that new car in your driveway, and this catered dinner party. Your family," Marcus said weakly. "I thought you understood. I understand that you've been taking advantage of me for years because you knew I wouldn't make a scene. I understand that you think my work has no value because I do it from home instead of in some fancy office. I understand that you believe my son isn't good enough for success while you parade around pretending you built your business all by yourself." Jennifer tried to intervene. "Maybe we should discuss this privately." "No," I said firmly. Marcus made his comments publicly. He humiliated my son in front of everyone. So everyone gets to hear this. "Marcus, your business runs on my accounting skills. Every financial decision you've made for the past 6 years has been based on reports I prepared. Every tax advantage you've claimed I found. Every expense I helped you categorize properly so you'd stay legal. That Morrison contract? I spent 16 hours analyzing the proposal to make sure your bid would be competitive but profitable. I could hire someone else," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You could, and they'd charge you 3 times what I charge. My rate is $60 an hour, which is well below market rate for someone with my experience and certifications. A professional firm would charge you $200 an hour minimum. And they'd want those 8 months of back payments immediately in full before they'd even agree to take you on as a client. They'd also need at least 2 months to understand your complete financial picture, to learn your business systems, to figure out how you've been categorizing expenses and tracking inventory. They'd need access to 6 years of records to understand the patterns and the history. And they couldn't file your quarterly reports, which, as I mentioned, are due next week. Miss that deadline and you're looking at penalties from the IRS, potential problems with the Morrison contract, which requires current financial documentation, and possible issues with your business licenses." The color had drained from Marcus's face, replaced by a sickly pale shade. His hands gripped the edge of the table. He was starting to understand the full scope of what was happening, the dominoes that were about to fall. "But here's the thing," I continued. "I don't want to work with someone who thinks my son is only good enough for cleaning toilets. I don't want to spend my time helping someone who treats family like they're worthless. So I'm done." "Wait," Marcus said, standing up. "You can't just quit. We're in the middle of—" "I can, and I am. Effective immediately. You'll receive a formal invoice for all outstanding work by Monday morning. I expect payment within 30 days, or I'll file a claim in small claims court." "This is ridiculous," Aunt Sandra interjected. "You're going to destroy his business over some joke?" "It wasn't a joke," I said. "It was cruelty. There's a difference." I looked around the table at all the faces that had been laughing just minutes ago. Now they looked uncomfortable, embarrassed, caught in the middle of something they hadn't expected. You know what the sad part is? I said. David actually admires his Uncle Marcus. He thinks you're successful and smart. He wanted to be like you. And you took that admiration and crushed it because it made you feel powerful. I didn't mean it like that, Marcus protested. Yes, you did. You meant every word. Because you've always needed to feel superior to everyone else. That's why you throw these dinner parties, why you brag about your contracts, why you make sure everyone knows how successful you are. But your success was built on my work. Work you didn't even respect enough to pay for. Mom started crying quietly. Dad just stared at his plate, saying nothing. I should go, I said. Thank you for dinner, Mom. The pie was delicious as always. I grabbed my coat from the hall closet and headed for the door. Behind me, I could hear urgent whispered conversations breaking out. Marcus was saying something about talking this through, about not being hasty. But I was done talking. In the car, David stared straight ahead, his jaw tight. I'm sorry you had to hear that, I said as I started the engine, my hands shaking slightly with residual adrenaline. Why did he say those things? David asked quietly, his voice small and hurt in a way that made my chest ache. What did I ever do to him? I was just answering his question. Because some people feel better about themselves by making others feel small. It has nothing to do with you and everything to do with him. He's insecure, so he needs to make everyone else feel inferior. That's not strength. That's weakness disguised as confidence. But what if he's right? What if I'm not good enough? What if I can't make it in business school? What if community college is a stupid idea and I'm just wasting time? I pulled out of the driveway before answering, needing a moment to collect my thoughts and keep my voice steady. The streetlights cast long shadows across the road. David, I've been managing complex financial portfolios for 15 years. I've worked with business owners, lawyers, doctors, all kinds of professionals. You know what I've learned? Success isn't about where you start. It's about whether you're willing to work hard, keep learning, and treat people with respect. You've got the first two covered. And unlike your uncle, you've got the third one too. What's going to happen now? He asked. Well, Uncle Marcus is probably panicking right now because his quarterly reports are due and he has no idea how to prepare them. He'll either have to pay me what he owes or hire someone else at triple the rate. Either way, he's learning an expensive lesson about valuing people's work. But he's family. Family doesn't mean accepting abuse. Family should lift each other up, not tear each other down. We drove in silence for a while. Then David said, Mom? Yeah. Thanks for standing up for me. Always, I said. That's what parents do. My phone started ringing before we even got home. Marcus's number flashed on the screen. Then Jennifer's. Then Dad's. I let them all go to voicemail. By the next morning, I had 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages. Marcus's messages progressed from angry to desperate to pleading over the course of just a few hours. The first ones were defensive. You're overreacting. This is unprofessional. You can't just abandon a client. Then came the reality check. We need to talk about the reports. I don't have access to some of the files. Can we work something out? Finally, desperation. Please. The deadline is in 5 days. I'll pay you everything I owe. I need your help. But I didn't reconsider. I sent him a formal invoice itemized to the last dollar, including interest on the late payments. I sent a list of all his financial files that I would be transferring to his new accountant once he hired one and provided their contact information. I sent a professional goodbye letter, CC'd to my lawyer, making it clear that our professional relationship was terminated and that any future contact should be regarding payment only. 3 weeks later, I received a check for the full amount he owed, plus a late fee. No apology, just a check. That was fine. I didn't need his apology. David was accepted into the State University's business program with a partial scholarship. He's studying financial management. His professors say he has a real talent for it. And Marcus? I heard through the family grapevine that he had to hire a large accounting firm to clean up the mess and prepare his reports. They charged him $8,000 just to get everything current. Sometimes the best response to cruelty isn't anger or revenge. Sometimes it's simply knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less. David learned that lesson that night. And so did Marcus, though I doubt he'll ever admit it.